So we are going to dive into a session called How Fried Chicken Took Over the World, the Rise of Global Fried Chicken. And really, we're just looking at, I think, one of the world's favorite foods. Has a sort of illustrious history and so many different ways to prepare it. And every year I feel like food magazines declare it the year of fried chicken. But every year is the year of fried chicken. So I am happy to introduce our presenters today. I'm going to introduce them in reverse order of how they'll present. So we have Eric Zay, who's chef and co-owner of 886 and Wen in New York. He's going to join us virtually. Then we have Sam Fore, who we're always happy to welcome back. She's a chef owner of Tuk Tuk Snack Shop in Lexington, Kentucky. And then also, as Rupa had mentioned, an actual colonel. And we're going to ask her about that. And then we have Eric Stein, who is head of international culinary for Church's Texas Chicken from Atlanta, Georgia. And Eric he comes to us through our Healthy Menus R&D collaborative group. And that is a group that helps to facilitate work that advances the development of healthy menu solutions for restaurants and food service operators. And so we have some HMC members in the audience. We just wanted to give a shout out to them. We love working with them. And so now we are going to have a presentation by Eric Stein. So help me welcome him, please.
Thanks so much. Isn't it ironic that the chef for a fried chicken chain is also a registered dietitian? So I'm going to talk a little bit about today about how fried chicken is taking over the world, specifically with Church's Texas Chicken. If you are familiar with Church's Chicken, how many people here love fried chicken? A lot of show of hands. And so Church's has two brands, right? In the US, we just rebranded as Church's Texas Chicken. And then Church's Texas Chicken is also Canada and the Americas. So Mexico, Puerto Rico, the Latin countries. And so I don't work on the domestic team, I work all through international. And then Texas Chicken is our Middle Eastern and Asian Pacific brand, is simply Texas Chicken. And so then globally, we're about 1,500 restaurants. It's split about 50-50 between international and domestic. And then domestically here, 29 states, and then myself, we fluctuate between 26 and 23 countries. And so when I started in 2000, about 3 years ago, we had 26 countries. We've sort of scaled back. And now we're jumping up, and you'll see a lot of market entries in the next few years, which is really exciting. Right? And so then I want to talk a little bit about how we work on menu development and flavor profiles for the different regions, because myself, I lead what's brand-led innovation, right? The LTOs, so monthly limited time offers. They're not necessarily monthly in every market. Some markets run their calendars for a 2-month cycle. Some do have every single month. And so I'm developing a lot of products that are going to these calendars really yearly. And so I heard Chef Sawa in the last presentation talk about develop 50 products and maybe 3 are great. And that's kind of how our process is we develop a lot of products and then we take them to customer testing and then we land on what it scores the highest. And then that's what makes the calendars for the next year and the next year. And so just showing all of the countries that we're in. I just took a tour this summer, 6 weeks. I was in 7 countries in 6 weeks. So Canada, Mexico, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, then Dubai. Working with about 1,500 customers, testing about a dozen products. And so eight products per country, about a dozen overall, maybe a little bit more. I say I bring the legendary taste of Texas to the world, right? And so we work on both brand-led flavor profiles, the taste of Texas, as well as localized flavor profiles. And so kind of finding that mix of what are the local flavors that are gonna work, right, that are gonna be really acceptable, but then how do we, as we're here for authenticity, how do we keep those products really with the right flavor profiles? And I'll talk a little bit about that closer to the end. Going back to the authenticity, how do we bring the taste of Texas, right, to the Middle East, where there's not even a word for bark, right? So if I try to do Texas bark wings to bring brisket, right, Texas brisket, we're familiar with the bark, they don't even have a word to really reference what that tastes like. And so kind of that's a real challenge in my job is how do we bring these really bold Texas flavors to markets that really don't know what Texas tastes like, right? They think it's cowboys and cactuses and armadillos. I really need to start off though and talking about our people. I didn't want to leave the people to the end, but this is really the most important thing that to me when I go to markets because they're the ones that make it happen every single day. Right? I heard Rupa say, Sam last year talking about you don't need my hands to make fried chicken, but I really have to think about how the products that I make are made by hundreds of hands globally. Am I making the operations right? Am I making the flavor profiles acceptable? You know, are our customers really going to gravitate? Are they going to come back to our restaurants? So these all were from this summer on that tour. You'll learn a lot of fun things. There's a lot of my favorite people in these pictures. And so in addition to myself doing product development, I also have product developers in some of the markets. And so you can see on the bottom here, Felicia is kind of in the back with her lanyard on. I have Alan in the middle is in the red shirt is their restaurant, like their operations manager. I don't have the R&D person in the top is in Thailand, but the lady Ning with her blue shirt on is like, she is a godsend. I tell you, when I go into that market, it's hard when I come to a market, right? They know that there's gonna be a lot more work for them, right? And as I said, we test 2 products or 2 days every single day with 200 customers. That's extra work for their restaurants. And so they're the ones that organize the product tasting and the development and make it easy for me to just be able to show up and do the work. Here again, this is in the UAE, right, in Dubai. And so I have Irfan in the middle, right? These guys make the operations happen for us. So when I'm able to go to markets. And so really something that the people are our pillar of our business and something I think about when I do development for the brand. Right, so what does bold Texas flavor really mean? We used to say we bring the bold taste of Texas to the world. I really, in the 3 years that I've been with the brand, have sort of changed that to bringing the bold flavor of Texas chicken to the world, right? And so when you're in a country like Vietnam, you go to Texas chicken, right? And so what is the flavor of that quick serve restaurant, right? And it's not really fast food the way that we have fast food in the US. I've even had conversations with people in this room, right? There's plates, it's family meals. You're not necessarily going through a drive-through. We really don't have drive-throughs in the international markets. It's kind of a different sort of restaurant, but bringing those bold flavors to these restaurants, right? So then what do? Creating the fusion, right, of global flavor profiles, Church's Texas Chicken brand heritage, right? We're a 75-year-old company, 76 years this year with Church's Chicken. Bringing global flavors, right? So Thailand has different flavors than Indonesia, then has different flavors than Dubai, have different flavors than Canada, right? And so how do you bridge the gap between these countries? And then how do you make it craveable to attract new fast food fanatics? So what is a fast food fanatic? I really fall within that category, right? Somebody that goes to follow the limited time offers of either your restaurant or multiple restaurants, keeping on track of the food trends. I will tell you in Asia, it is so fast and furious how food trends change and evolve and what people gravitate for and how quickly they go. When I talked about the calendar planning at the beginning of this, right? So we work on what we call an 18-month calendar. So things I developed last year will then hit the calendar mid to late this year. But in countries like Thailand where the trends are so fast and furious, we really might bring that back to like a 4-month, right? This is the trend, let's develop it, let's bring it to market, we'll create all the creatives, and here we go. Right? So what does a bold global flavor look like? So I want to show you probably our most extensive menu is in Thailand, right? So Thailand has just upwards of 100 restaurants, right? It's our biggest market in the Asia Pacific region, and it's way different than what you have here in the US, right? In the United States, bone-in fried chicken is king. We have tenders, we have sandwiches, and that's the extent of it. How many people are familiar with Church's in the US? I'm really sorry I didn't bring honey butter biscuits for the tasting. But you can see how different, right? We have wraps, we have sandwiches, we have rice bowls. So we have what we call our core menu or our menu must-haves. You have at the top, underneath tenders, you can see sauces. So barbecue sauce is a must-have, right? If you're coming to Church's Texas Chicken, you must have barbecue sauce. That's really on our core menu. You see all the way, right next to it, spicy lobster, right? So a spicy lobster sauce is unique to Thailand. That sauce was a huge lift for them last year. It we say like a 8 to 10% LTO is really successful. They had about a 25% sales mix at a certain point of their calendar last year, of their monthly calendar last year. And so then it worked its way onto the menu. And so you can see here, you have that as a dipping sauce, a spicy lobster rice bowl. You can make any product lobster. You see all the way on the end there with the fried chicken. So add spicy lobster. And then even all the way into the wraps here, right? So a spicy lobster wrap. It's really fun to work with the local teams to bring their flavors to the menu, right? And so again, this is unique only to the Thailand market, but then markets like Malaysia have things that are unique to them. Indonesia is a really interesting and one of my favorite markets to visit because it's bone-in chicken centric, right? The wraps and sandwiches were just starting to evolve a little bit more, but that's a really big bone-in market, right? Malaysia or Vietnam, we do really well with wraps because banh mi is so popular and you can get banh mi in any corner everywhere in Vietnam. Burger chains don't do as well there because they can already get banh mi for cheaper. And so the reason that we do successful on wraps is that's such a unique product for them. The legend, and so this was a huge departure for us, is to do a pork katsu sandwich. And I'll tell you, when I first heard we're going to do pork, I was like, well, that doesn't really make any sense, right? Because one of the reasons that we don't call it churches, right, is because there's more a Muslim consumer in some of the Asia regions. And so why would we put pork on the menu? But because Thailand is so diverse and really such a food hub, and then when I visited, right, there's pork everywhere on the menus there. And so we have and even for myself, I've learned so much in the past 3 years. We have a very limited view of what really happens. Chef last night talking about how a lot of Indians aren't really vegetarian, right? We have our preconceived notions, but then when you get to the market and you see what's really happening there, it's really a lot more acceptable to some of the new flavors. I like that Royal Katsu because I can hang my hat on. I put the crown on there, a little nod to Biggie Smalls. So this is on our digital menu board. We have digital menu boards in most markets, right? And so this is a brand-led LTO that I'm very, very proud of. It was a Texas firecracker. And so this was a celebratory flavor it's a blending of all the flavors of all of our markets. So there's a little Latin American flavor in there with the citrus, so lime and orange. It's essentially a spicy char-siu with citrus, right? So it's acceptable for all three markets and has a little bit of Middle Eastern spice. I called it a Texas firecracker, right? When we tested it for the first time in the UAE, they thought they were gonna get spicy saltines because that's what a cracker is, right? And no, it's true. You really learn a lot through how you go to these markets and you have to rename products. And so this was called the Fire Crunch in the Middle East. It'll launch next year called the Thai Fire Sandwich in some of the Asian markets. And so using the same sauce, the same product, but just a different name to make it more acceptable. There's a product that'll launch this summer in Canada, and it took me 3 years to actually get it to the menu. And so it's inspired by chicken 65, right? But we weren't gonna do a chicken 65 sandwich or a chicken 65 flavor, but using that as a flavor profile as the influence, and then working with customers to gain their acceptability and see how they would position it. It'll launch this summer as something called Texas Red. Again, flavors that are brand-led that we develop, right? So here's some examples of brand-led of things that I think will work well in the market, right? So garlic chili lime, very much Texas to an international consumer, right? Spicy ramen chicken. This was an interesting one because we didn't test it with a ramen breader, right? So crushed up ramen noodles, which would really bring it over the top, but operationally would be too difficult to make it that product, right? So it's simply a spicy Texas-inspired ramen seasoning that then goes on the chicken. And then this one will make it to markets this year, tested #1 concept in some APAC markets is a yuzu kushu wrap. Wasabi mayo is boring, and so I said, well, what else can we do? And so there's a lot of publications that are in this room represented here that have showed yuzu kushu as a trend. And so we had formerly had a nori yuzu chicken. And so this is the evolution of nori yuzu into the yuzu kushu wrap. A lot of what I do is baby steps into next year's innovation, right? So we take things that we know work well, and then what's the evolution of that flavor for next year? And so that's constantly evolving on the menu globally. Really fun LTO is spicy garlic ranch, you see on the gold. And then Malaysia took that for their Lunar New Year, and so Golden Fortune chicken, right? And so again, the naming for the Lunar New Year, spicy garlic ranch wouldn't have been as popular, but then you change the marketing around it towards something called Golden Fortune, again, a celebratory flavor. We have a really great one calling Red Fortune this summer that will be brand led. It's that same Texas red flavor profile that will have been launched in Malaysia. And then here's 2 examples of franchisee-led products. All of our international restaurants are franchise-based, right? And so the franchisees can also submit their suggestions for new products. And so here's 2 great ones. Is a Korean flavor for Singapore, and then Japanese curry, a Japanese curry bowl for Thailand. All right, 33 seconds left.
So thank you, Eric. And I wanted to say it's great. I'm seeing some questions come in. We're going to do a quick Q&A at the end, so keep them coming. And did want to remind you, so Chef Sam Fore is going to do her demo, and you want to remember you can follow along with her recipe if you click in the app on that session and you scroll down and you see the attachments. So you ready, Sam? All right, let's go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sam Fore. I am an actual Kentucky colonel that serves fried chicken in a restaurant that I opened 6 weeks ago. I tend to do everything a little bit backwards. I actually originally had a career in marketing and advertising, and decided that one day I was going to cook in a tent. And the fried chicken in that tent meant limes, and meant that all of a sudden I had a vehicle to tell people about my upbringing and about what I love to do. So fried chicken is a pretty universal vehicle. I mean, first time I went to Sri Lanka when I was a teenager, first thing I saw was a KFC. It was probably the most crowded restaurant there, which was extremely confusing for me. But when you look at fried chicken around the world, it becomes a vehicle for people to both share flavors, share stories, share what makes our chicken ours. So I decided one day to start this pop-up tent. Somebody said, hey, you would make a really great fried chicken. I'm like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. I'll think about it for a bit. Thought about it for about 2 months, and as opposed to wide market testing, I chose to test with the sommeliers at the Bourbon Bar down the street. So it turned into every 5 minutes running a batch over and doing different iterations of brine, different iterations of batter, different iterations of coating, just so I could make it taste like I wanted it to taste. And so yesterday, if you had the fried chicken at the marketplace, that is something that I am so beyond proud of, both as a cook and as like marketing mind, because it takes so many stories to make that chicken. And the best thing about it is that like now I can let people do it themselves and turn their own stories around it. So in Sri Lanka, we don't use masalas as they do in Indian cuisine. We use curry powder. And so I wanted to make sure to harp on ingredients that are extremely important, yet somehow accessible to the wider market. And so I decided to make my own fried chicken spice, because if you travel for pop-ups, all of a sudden you're in the middle of Martha's Vineyard and you don't really have a whole spice store to source curry powders from, or whole spices that you would blend, and you sit there confused as to why can I not make fried chicken right now. So I decided to do a little bit simplified version for the recipe books here. If you do not feel like making those together, I do have that actually canned now. But I use a riff on Madras curry powder to make sure that my chicken has the flavor of the chicken curry that I ate growing up. And I think that that has resonated with a lot of people, especially those who have come and sought me out. And now, you know, whereas we have names of fried chicken for holidays and whatnot like that, I named my fried chicken sandwich after my dog. So my fried chicken is deeply personal, but I want it to be marketable and approachable in a way that everyone can connect with it. So to make the fried chicken spice, so to speak, tons of garlic, tons of ginger, a little bit of Madras curry powder, salt, pepper. Pretty simple, right? I'll pass that to you. So I'm gonna mix this guy up. That's a spoon, that's not gonna work out. But for me, to get everything to combine well and to also call back to the fact that I'm a Sri Lankan woman born in Kentucky, I definitely had to pull on some Southern traditions. And what people don't realize, especially about a lot of pop-up chefs, is that for our food to succeed, we have to do a tremendous amount of research. And so I pretty much deep dove on every kind of fried chicken imaginable, which was wonderful until I had to try every single fried chicken sandwich available for delivery during the pandemic because I was researching whether or not I wanted to open a fried chicken restaurant. I don't recommend that. It's painful. You can only eat so much fried chicken, unfortunately. So I decided that buttermilk would be the best way to impart flavor into my fried chicken because acidic, delicious, easily accessible in the South, can do substitutions as I need to wherever I go. So I end up blending my spices with the buttermilk. And what I've found is that as people have shared their recipes, they have shown me different ways to make my recipe that still work and are still consistent with the flavors that I want, but make it kind of their own. I also like to add a little bit of ground up, amped up garlic and ginger, a little extra salt. And somebody actually came into my restaurant last week and told me that I have given them ammunition for the hill that they want to die on, and that is that fried chicken sandwiches should be made with chicken thighs. I didn't intend to be that controversial in the fried chicken world, but I'll take it. And so the important thing is that when you're making a good fried chicken, you want flavors to impart, you want flavors to marinate. So I like to let mine go for about 4 hours, at least. And now it's turned into, as we're doing trays of it in the restaurant, letting it go overnight and, making sure that we have enough on hand for the inevitable rush of, oh my gosh, we need 4 two-piece chickens. What are you thinking? And I'm like, I wasn't thinking that I was a fast food chicken restaurant, but now I am. So I want to make sure that people have that consistent experience though. And so making that spice blend, making sure that I tested it, that it was successful beyond myself was a really good way to make sure that it was accessible to my customers. So now I've got all this fun stuff going. Hang on. You don't have to finish this. Also, if you enjoyed the fried chicken yesterday and you've been enjoying these demos, the CIA staff and the culinary team here has been phenomenal, and they're absolutely incredible. I get to work with Rebecca every once in a while, and it's always a treat, but they really do make my job easy, and it makes me really happy to be able to present this to all of you, which is not something that I thought that I would ever do, because again, I really did think I was going to be a consumer behaviorist one day and not some sort of fried chicken magnate in training, but I'll take it. Alrighty. So step 1, fried chicken, brining, done, right? Step 2, important piece of fried chicken. How do you make it crispy? How do you make it craveable? And in my case, if you're cooking it in your restaurant that you happen to buy at Walmart in a 10 by 10 tent behind a bar in 40-degree weather, how do you make it stay crispy? You mix up a lot of starches. So I started to lean on starches for that crispness, that lightness, and actually I've changed up the recipe for the restaurant a little bit because I realized that my gluten-free diners were missing out on the opportunity to have fried chicken. And so now I can use a combination of sorghum and rice flour and make my fried chicken dredge gluten-free. That said, the recipe that you have is easily the most consistent for common use. Little salt, little pepper, make sure your flour is seasoned up. And the nice thing about this is that it really is any kind of dredge that makes you happy. I've got folks that use fry mix with buttermilk solids in it, and they say that it amps it up in the way that they absolutely love. I'm all for it. You know, to make fried chicken, you don't have to do it exactly. I mean, I don't know the Sanders 17 herbs and spices off the top of my head, but I still get to make Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? It doesn't make it inaccessible in any way. So we take that, we bread it, and we'll fry it. The last thing is that at the end of that sort of frying process, when you're making that bite, I like to kind of craft it around perfect bites that I've had or really great intense flavor memories. That's how it makes it connect for me. Sometimes that's how it makes it connect with my customer, or at least that's how they form a memory around having food at our place. Now, again, we've only been open for 6 weeks as a restaurant. I did everything backwards. I did all of the traveling, all of the conferences, all of the things first. And I got to learn from all of the folks like you on what it makes to make a successful entity. And so I realized that when I want to talk about authenticity, I have to make sure that it's honest and true to what I am doing. So the curry leaf is extremely important in Sri Lanka. And I'm pretty sure that the one that I have in my house is the same one that some auntie snuck in her bag in like 1982 and has proliferated around the country at this point in everyone's kitchens. I decided that we really needed to emphasize that flavor of both curry leaf and lime in our fried chicken spice, because lime is such a huge component of the acidic parts of Sri Lankan cuisine. That is what heightens my flavors. That is what really brings all of the goodness out. So in the final step of testing all these things after the 25th trip to the bar, I decided, okay, we've got to make curry salt. As we opened the restaurant, we decided the curry salt might not just be enough. We might need to add a bit of lime into that just to make it stand out, make it brighter, and make it memorable. So now you're going to see, you know, fried chicken crusted in lime zest, and you're gonna be like, no, that was Sam. Sam did that, and you're gonna do that for me, right? The easiest way to think about this is that I'm using common ingredients that call back to my childhood, but trying to make them accessible to more diners, to more cooks. And people don't really think, I can make curry leaf salt at home. It's so easy. And it's things like this that make people step out of their comfort zones to make more food. And that's how food proliferates. It's not just because I decided to put everything that I've got in a chicken curry into buttermilk one day. It's because I wanted to make it accessible so that people could understand why we do it. Because it makes this flavor appear, because it makes this memory appear, because it makes this taste really, really good and makes for a great dinner. So I decided to combine finishing salt with curry leaves, fresh. Don't use dried here because you do want the oils to permeate the salt and lime zest. And all I do is crush it up. And I know that it sounds, you know, fancy, bougie, whatever, but it's the simplest thing. And the simplest things that I've learned in cooking have been the ones that have carried me the furthest. You know, people have been making spice blends and masalas for centuries at this point. And so why can't we continue to do those things and start to transform the landscape of the food world into something that's more reflective of us? You know, it's not just paprika, salt, and pepper anymore. It is ginger, it is garlic, it is hot pepper, it is all these flavors that are expressing themselves in one specific dish. And everybody has a fried chicken. Everyone has a meatball, everyone has a gravy, everyone has a fried chicken. It is not an exclusive food. And so when I wanted to just appeal to more people, I went for fried chicken. And it really has, I mean, it got me here, and I'm definitely not mad about that. And it helped me open a restaurant, you know, a fried chicken stand with a home fryer and a 10 by 10 tent has led to some of the best experiences and moments of my culinary career, while also pushing those boundaries and teaching me more about everything that makes food what it is today. So now that we've got some handy dandy curry salt, and the nice thing is that you can make this in advance, and then the curry leaves will eventually leach out their oil and dry out and keep this nicely seasoned. And it's also kind of fun to do. It's also a really great project if you have small ones in the kitchen so that they have an opportunity to, you know, participate. We've got some chicken frying, and use the tongs. I have tongs. I don't have to glove up this time. This is great. Another very important thing with fried chicken breading, for me, is to make sure that you get all of those little nooks and crannies covered. And sometimes we've been doing all sorts of experiments. Again, we've only been open for 6 weeks, I think that we've probably revised recipes at least 30 times in that time frame, because you have to find out what works for your space, what works for your staff, while also not compromising the quality of your product. So sometimes we find that with the patties or with the full chicken thighs on our sandwiches, if we refrigerate them with a bit of breading and dust them afterwards, they end up way crispier out of the fryer. Why? Some kind of science. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But it works, right? I mean, I guess cooking is kind of science for hungry people, so I guess that does work. But as you figure out where you're going with breading and all those sorts of things, eventually all of these little research projects that were a callback to the chicken curry that I ate as a kid became an actual full project on how to create, market test, and establish a fried chicken brand. Did I intend that? No. Is it a happy accident? Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think we've got some frying back here. And chicken thighs are delightful and forgiving in a way, because if you over fry, it doesn't dry out too much. So you can kind of give people a little bit of leeway to do their thing. But what's more important to me is that now my fried chicken serves as a gateway. So if somebody really likes fried chicken with curry spices, maybe the next time they come in, they're going to come in and try a rice bowl with chicken curry. They're going to try something a little bit different to push them more into the flavors that I love and that I grew up with. And selfishly, the ones that I like to proliferate in the culinary world. And so if that's what fried chicken can do for me, like, all bets are off. Fried chicken is the next big thing, but it's never not been a big thing. So if you're ever in Kentucky and you don't feel like going to KFC, you should come see me instead. And yeah, so fried chicken, wonderful, also a marketing technique. And once this guy comes out, I'm just gonna dump that. Got it. Very simple. I'm gonna plate that up. This is also one of those like kitchen hand moments. I don't recommend going straight from the fryer to your hands. You may hurt yourself. So give it a healthy squeeze of lime, again, to brighten it up. And then a little sprinkle of curry salt. 23 seconds, my friends.
Can you smell it in the back? Can you smell? Is it? Oh my gosh, it's so great. Thank you, Sam. And hopefully you were able to taste that at the market yesterday. And now we're going to bring in Eric Zay through Zoom. Oh, there he is. Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hey, what's up? How are you guys doing?
Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to sit down and you go ahead and take it on. You have 15 minutes.
Okay. What's up, everybody? Sorry I can't be there in person. Caught the last case of Corona, actually, which is not very fun. I was literally packing and started feeling dizzy and took a test, and it got the 2 lines of death. But on a positive note, I think I'm feeling a little bit better. And it's also a lot less intimidating to have to do this in person. All right. So I'm kind of doing this on the blind, but everybody can see me, can hear me. Everything is okay? Yeah? All right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. All right. I am here to talk about batter. Specifically, this fried chicken batter that we developed for when we were opening for our notorious BDSM fried chicken. It really started as sort of this novelty where I wanted to have a fried chicken dish that replicates the memory of soy milk chicken in Taiwan. It's like soy milk, but the thing about the direct translation, it translates to soy milk, but it's really all-encompassing. It's really a furu, which is fermented soybeans, as well as a soy milk and a bunch of other stuff in the form of a popcorn chicken. I wanted to take all those flavors and condense it into a fried chicken that I can make a centerpiece for the restaurant. And this was all during the planning stages. And where I really wanted to defer was the batter. I'm going to pull up a very fun little presentation that I made. Let me see. How do I start sharing my screen? Yes. Allow. Sorry, I probably should have ran this through beforehand. But I'm trying to share my screen. All right, there we go. You know what? Does anybody know how to? I feel like such a.
I'll tell you, Chef, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, so why don't I do this? You keep talking. I'm going to go talk with our tech guys and see if we can do this. And, we're just going to play it by ear. So can you talk about, can you delve more into the BDSM chicken, talk about it a little bit more? And I'm going to go do some tech troubleshooting, I'll let the experts do that. Okay.
Okay. It's telling me that I have to quit Zoom and then re-log in to be able to share my slide. Is that something I can do?
Finding out, Chef. We'll let you know ASAP. The tech squad is on it.
All right. Well, the gist of what I'm trying to present today is that we essentially came up with a wet batter that is a blend of sweet potato starch, which is very Taiwanese in terms of Taiwanese fried chicken, tofu, like an actual block of silicon tofu, and soy milk. These are the only three ingredients. We blend it vigorously in the Vitamix to create a bunch of air bubbles, eliminating the need of baking soda. And then what we do is we marinate our chicken, we dry it very thoroughly so that as much of the wet batter can stay on, and then we fry it, and then we re-dredge it, and then we fry it again. I have so much visuals for you guys that I made in the presentation once we can get that up. But essentially what you end up with is, I have it here actually. I feel like a food blogger. I'm not sure if you can see, but all these air bubbles and a very even coating of chicken that creates this crisp that's unlike the crisp of flour. It's unlike the crisp of sweet potato starch, because crispness, we've realized that there are levels to it, right? There's different levels of crispness, and all these variables and factors affect it. Your temperature, your starch, how long you fry it for, how dry your protein is before you dredged it, the moisture content, all of these things affect it. But I really want to get into my slide. But
Hey, Chef, in the interim, though, can you talk a little bit both about the name BDSM chicken? Because I keep saying BDSM chicken in front of this room of 500 people, and I'm not sure they know what we're talking about. So that, first of all, but also sort of the progression of the 886 popcorn chicken to what you're doing now.
Got it. Well, the BDSM chicken, it's very funny. So I've been obsessed with deboning an entire chicken and then frying it and then presenting it to the guest as a cut up whole chicken. The idea really stems from sort of like a roast chicken, and I really wanted to showcase the quality Chinese style like the yellow fat chickens that were able to get our hands on in New York. And also I was just at the same time playing around with the soy milk brine and all these things. And one day, right before, like about 2 weeks before we were about to open Wen, we were printing menus. We were formatting a menu, and I was like, okay, it's the boneless fried chicken. And then the description was soy milk, brined and deboned. And then our general manager, Fore, was like, haha, BDSM. It's brined, deboned, soy milk chicken. We talk about marketing, right? Fried chicken as a form of marketing. That in itself, I don't know, it was kind of a stupid spur of the moment thing. We just thought, oh yeah, might as well, right? We're only going to serve 5 a night because it's very labor intensive. It takes up the entire fryer when you're frying a chicken. You can't really pre-fry it. And you need somebody actually deboning the whole chicken. So it's an entire bird. Only the wings have bones. Everything else is deboned, but it's just one piece of flat chicken. And so then might as well give it a really silly name because it's a very silly dish. And next thing you know, people are lining up an hour before we opened for it. And to this day, we opened last March, so it's over a year and a half. People still line up at 4:30, 4:45 just to get the chicken. It's a nice chicken. You know, fried chicken sells. There's a reason why we're talking about it here. But the evolution of that is 886 we opened in 2018, very casual Taiwanese restaurant. At 886, we serve a relatively more traditional style popcorn chicken, which is dredged with both thin and thick sweet potato starch. But our little twist on it, actually this is a foreshadow, but our little twist on it is that we make a chili oil honey with other spices as well. But basically we make our own blend of chili oil, we blend it with honey and a bunch of other spices, and then we drizzle it onto the popcorn chicken. So it has this essence of almost Korean fried chicken-like flavor, but is still very familiar in terms of the Taiwanese realm of fried chicken. And this kind of evolved into what I'm showcasing today, because I showcase it in the form of a popcorn chicken. This batter is phenomenal, and you can fry anything with this. We fried, actually, it almost seems like a very good fish and chip batter, because by blending it in the Vitamix, you're introducing so much air. You don't need the beer or the baking soda to create your carbon dioxide. You already have it. It's great for pre-frying popcorn chicken because you just dredge it, fry it, and it already holds its shape, and then you can dredge it again so that you can sort of make up any other of the naked spots you may have. But yeah, that is really what I wanted to dive into. I think I can, you know what? Okay, I'm going to talk about how we started this. Basically, this batter started because I, as a Taiwanese guy with a Taiwanese restaurant, am very, very jealous of the Koreans. I think they have the best fried chicken in the world, and I have this thing called Korean envy. Because they have K-pop, they have great Korean restaurants, and we are just starting off. And we are lagging behind, so it's a love-hate relationship for me. They are so successful. I want to be as successful as them. And it all boils down to their fried chicken. I think the Korean fried chicken crisp is unparalleled. I mean, we can all, as I said, there are levels of crispness. And crisp versus crunch, there are two different things. And I think the Korean fried chicken, when done well, is just such a melody of texture that's just impossibly crisp, shatteringly crisp. I wanted our fried chicken to be at that level without replicating a one-to-one recipe of Korean fried chicken, if that makes sense. Very much inspired out of envy. And I wanted this fried chicken to also represent my Taiwanese heritage because this is a Taiwanese restaurant. So it has to be something that blends both seamlessly. And so that is the basis of my thought when I was trying to come up with this batter. I knew it had to be a wet batter because Korean fried chicken is able to attain that crisp due to it being a wet batter and the moisture evaporates, leaving a thin layer of starch, crispy starch on top. So it started there. And then I had this sort of eureka moment. That is a hypothesis. I am no scientist. Somebody in the audience can probably prove me wrong and call BS on this. But I was thinking to myself, what makes flour such a good batter? Like regular flour. And it's because the protein content, correct? Protein crisps like no other. Well, it becomes crunchy. So I wanted something with that crunch, but without the possibility of creating gluten because it's going to be a wet batter. And so I was thinking, all right, sweet potato starch does not have any protein. What can I add that has protein? I was drinking soy milk at the time. And I was like, wow, this soy milk has so much protein, I might as well just add into it. So I added it in. made a wet batter, and it was great, but it was lacking this viscosity. And it sounds like I'm just pulling this out of my ass, but I really am not. I was eating a crispy fried tofu at 886 while I was thinking about this problem. And the crispy fried tofu, our preparation at 886 is we naked fry. We pre-fry it, just silken tofu, we cut it, put it in a 350-degree fryer, and it comes out with a nice golden crust. And then that's a pre-fry, and then we dump it back into the fryer on pickup. And I was eating, and I was like, wow, how do I get this crisp, this level of viscosity outside of this tofu? I was like, I'll just blend the tofu into the batter. And so that's what I did. And voila, it yielded a batter that not only is impossibly crisp, very airy, but also has the structural integrity of exactly what I was looking for. And yeah, it's a very happy accident. It's crunchy, it's crispy, and it's also flaky. It kind of still boggles my mind. I was prepping it this morning, and I was like, wow, this shit really works. Yeah, and I talked about the recipe, and I think you can probably get the recipe somewhere in the cloud where the CIA guys have prepared.
They do.
But it's one block of silken tofu. Make sure it's unsweetened soy milk, and it's the Chinese kind of soy milk. It's just soybeans and water blended. There's a good layer of natural fat in there. Sweet potato starch, doesn't matter if it's thin or thick, and a good Vitamix. And I'm sure you guys can definitely figure out a better recipe. Like I haven't tested it with other starches. I'm sure with rice flour would be awesome. I'm sure with chickpea flour, I'm sure with potato starch, all of these things. And it also opens up, this technique opens up different possibilities, right? Like what if you fried with almond milk? What if you fried with different types of liquid that's not water? Creating a wet batter where it has flavor, right? It's not just the flavor of the starch, because this batter tastes like soy milk and it's awesome. So what if, I don't know, something it has to be less than sugar. I was thinking strawberry juice, which is kind of crazy. I still have COVID, so please excuse my stupid ideas, but you get my gist, right? The liquid, it can be any flavor as long as it makes sense. Too high in sugar, you're going to burn the crap out of it. The starch, whatever starch that is appropriate for you and has the sort of qualities that you're looking for. And tofu, right? Tofu is there to provide structure. And I use silken, but you can use soft, you can use firm, and it just differs in the level of water, right? So technically, if you use firm, you would have even more structure because there's less water. Things like that. It's just, it opens up so much possibility, and it is so consistent. As long as you dredge your protein before all the air bubbles dissipate, it is incredibly consistent. It's been sitting here for like 20 minutes now, and it's still, I don't know if you can hear. I don't want to get this all over my laptop. But you probably can't hear. I have a video that showcases the texture. I don't know if
Well, Chef, I'll tell you what. So we can't do this now, but send me that PowerPoint and if you have a video, if it's in there, or you want to send me the video separately, and we'll share it with our attendees. We send out a link to recipes and things like that about a week out after the conference. So we'll share that with them. We share presentations also, so they can see that, what you put together. But I think this is a great time for us to go to Q&A, if that works for you.
Yeah, sure. Then I'll just eat this and try to showcase that.
Okay, well, thank you. So give us 1 second. We're going to set up some chairs.
Eric, we need the sound.
It looks crispy.
All right. So Sam and Eric Stein, if you could take seats. And then Eric Zay, we're going to ask you to come back.
Whoop.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, don't forget to send your questions. We have some questions now. And I'm going to start with an ingredient one. Nicole would love to hear more about sorghum flour and as it compares with other starches.
Oh, man. So my scientific approach is, does this taste good and does this work? And so when you have a variety, I mean, you can go to the grocery store nowadays and go to the specialty aisle and see a ton of different things. And sorghum and sort of grain farming, especially in Kentucky, is pretty important because of a little spirit called bourbon. And so I also happen to have a couple friends who work in the science of bourbon. And so finding sorghum flour was not a complete accident. It's also, as I've noticed, one of the larger components of most gluten-free flours. And so compared to other starches, like I tried potato starch, it came out almost too flaky for me. And then I've tried cornstarch, which if you use too much, it's all about balance. So the sorghum flour, for some reason, it binds really, really well, but it doesn't make the chicken heavy. And so that's why I chose that one. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's definitely a trial and error of what worked for the flavors that I wanted to push across.
And this question is for Eric Stein. So first of all, a question about food trends. And are you looking at trends that aren't happening at the moment? Like what is that process like? And then how many of the global flavors that you talked about make it back to the US market?
So to start off with, we're always looking at trends, street level trends, right? There's a whole cycle of how trends make it to ubiquity, right? From street level to ubiquity. And so where ubiquity, we can get them at McDonald's, you can get them at the grocery store, right? It's full scale, but we're always looking at what are street level trends because it does take time to develop products to make it to the menu. And then we always do look at how can we bring products from international to the domestic menu, and we're constantly working on that too.
That sounds great. And so this is a larger question for the three of you, and maybe Eric Zay, I know that sustainability is an issue that is of concern just generally in your work, but how are you thinking about sustainability as you're looking forward and with your restaurants?
Well, I think this is an issue that hits with every single person who's in the restaurant industry because it's not just the economic impact, it's also the environmental impact, right? And for us, the whole point of the BDSM chicken is to showcase that, hey, chickens look like this as a whole thing. This is one whole chicken. And it really starts from that small idea. And whether or not we're currently working on a few more offal dishes and things that can really start introducing more whole animal dining. And it's not a new concept, right? People have been pushing for this for years. And that's kind of our goal, to really start pushing our customers to be a little bit more adventurous, to be comfortable with things that they're uncomfortable with, right? Like seeing a whole chicken feet with fried chicken. That is something that the market wasn't really used to. And it's like, it seemed like such a novelty, but now it's quite ubiquitous. That's for me.
And also I wanted to, we had mentioned it before, but Sam, we really need to know more about being a colonel. If you could sort of go through that process, can we all apply?
No. Becoming a Kentucky colonel was actually a complete surprise. Some of my regulars I did a lot of philanthropic work during the pandemic and afterwards, and I try to kind of leave my community a little bit. I opened up in my hometown. I want to leave things a little bit better than I found them. And it really resonated with two of my regulars. They contacted the governor's office, and I got home one day and I had this really pretty plaque on my porch and a little membership card and the opportunity to get like a license plate that says Colonel. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. The Kentucky Colonels has actually been around for a couple decades, and it recognizes folks with philanthropic community connections and local community like development connections. And so you can get nominated, and if the governor deems it so, he will make you a Kentucky Colonel, and it is an actual thing. So yeah, our little re-elected Governor Bashir decided to make me a colonel last year, and that was definitely, I was shocked. But you know, I mean, if you're a colonel making fried chicken in Kentucky and you're not doing it right, I think they make you move to Tennessee. So. But no, it's actually a tremendous honor, and it's like alongside all of these like fantastic luminaries, and I got there because I make chicken. So.
Well, great. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks to all of you. I think, we tried to show the sort of diversity between, what chefs at a smaller scale independent are doing, and then also, what these larger companies, what it's like to be able to take those flavors across the world. And so thank you, all three of you, for this conversation about fried chicken. And I will just say, I know we had a bunch more questions, but we're running out of time. But Sam and Eric Stein will be here, so feel free to come up at breaks and talk more to them. And Eric Zay, thank you so much for being sick and joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Shout out to Eric and Sam too for their enthusiasm. Like both of them, great presentations and what you do and bringing the flavors. And like you both brought up science, which is cool because it is something that we think about, but you think about in your kitchen. I'm not scientific, but you definitely are.
I mean, we're all nerds in some way, shape, or form. Come on now. But it's important. Testing is important. And I think that's something that resonates with everybody here. When you're looking for a good solution, you want one that's going to work. You want one that's going to work long term. So I think that especially, I'm absolutely fascinated by the BDSM chicken, and now it's like on my list for the next time I'm in New York. And also, Eric, we're going to
Googled it.
Yeah, we're going to. I don't want to know what came
don't
up.
Google it. I don't suggest Googling BDSM chicken.
Also, but yes, it's been just a treat, and I can't wait to be best friends with Eric Zay. So.
Sounds great.
Can't wait either.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
We asked Eric, do you feel like you beat the Koreans?
Do you feel like they want to ask? Do you feel like you beat the Koreans?
No, nobody can do it. It's a daily struggle for me.
All right, so we're going to end on that note. We're going to keep Sam here. Thank you, Eric Stein, Eric Zay, and we are going to jump right into our next session.